Suneera Madhani. Suneera Madhani.
Without much further ado, I'd like to welcome Suneera.
Hi, I'm Suneera Madhani, a mom of two, daughter of an immigrant, and an unlikely entrepreneur who built a billion-dollar business. Yes, billion. Now I'm doing it again and building my second unicorn, Worth. Shockingly, less than 2% of female founders ever reach 1 million in revenue, and I'm on a mission to change that. At CEO School, we mentor thousands of women to help them level up in business and in life. We believe that you deserve to have it all, because honestly, nothing bad happens when women make more money. Grab a seat because class is officially in session. Welcome to CEO School. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the CEO School podcast. It's Suneera here, and today we are going to be talking all things human. And I'm not talking about the inner human, maybe a little bit of the inner human, but I'm talking all things HR. I know this is not like the sexiest topic that we love to talk about, but it's such an important part of being CEO, and it's such an important part of business. It's honestly one of the biggest questions that we get asked all the time inside of CEO School is around how we're hiring, how to have hard conversations as a leader, and even what are the latest trends in HR. Whether you have a team of just you or you have a team of 400, HR and understanding compliance, solutions, and best practices is so important. So over the next 30 minutes, I'm super excited to give you a masterclass on all things HR, and so that you can have an incredible organization that's protected, that is scaling, and that you can have the right A team. That's in essence like the main goal, right? So to be able to have players that are doing the work for you and for the vision of your company, and also firing the ones that shouldn't be there. So we'll be talking about all those solutions. So with that, I've brought in two incredible experts. They're part of our Millionaire Founders Club group, and I invited them during the retreat to do an entire session. It was literally one of the most unbelievable sessions, and so I said, we have to bring this to the podcast. And so without further ado, I have Zach Human Solutions here and their co-founders. So I have Nadian, Zach, and Kacie Scott, and they're going to share all things HR. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thanks so much, Suneera. It is such an honor to be on the show with you.
I'm so excited to have this conversation. I feel like we haven't had some of I love to do the tactical conversations, and your session at MFC was so incredible. I came back and, even after 15 years of running, I feel like I've had every kind of HR experience imaginable. HR surprises you. No, I kid you not. Me and my head of talent from my previous company, we literally had to have a joke that we can't wait one day to have our own podcast. And the vision is that we're completely muffled. And so it's those avatars, when you're on Dateline or something and the voice is muffled, but we get to actually hear some of our worst HR nightmares. So between her and I, scaling our last company, we hired, we had 400 employees. And so every month we onboarded new team members, that we had turnover from team members. We went through the great resignation during COVID, so many different changes. And I kid you not, I think I have seen everything imaginable in HR. Every other month, something else would surprise us of shit that people do that you're what? This is a professional environment? How is this happening? But anyway, I'm super excited to have you guys. I'm sure you've dealt with your fair share of all of it too.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
We can tell you stories for days and days.
Where I'm always nothing shocks me anymore. And then
and then it does.
It will shock me.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the exact feeling. I feel like what we used to always it doesn't, it's it doesn't shock you because you're man, I've gone through enough shit to be this is the reality of it. But it still shocks you because everything is so nuanced. But anyway, maybe at the end of the show, so we'll leave that for the audience to stay juicy with us. Maybe we can share some of our fun HR stories at the end. But I definitely think that's a fun podcast waiting to happen, and I want to listen about all of the crazy shit that people do. So I'll share some at the end of the show. But tell us a little bit about, so our audience, as you know, is entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, and they range in all sizes of companies and of people. And one of the biggest myths that I find is that, we're dealing with HR, or we're putting in policies, or we're putting in, benefits and so many other things so much later because we think of it as it's one of the last parts of the company that we think of. and we're kind of late to it. So if you can kind of talk us through, like, at what stage, what do you need from an HR tool set? I'd love to begin there.
Yeah, that's such a great question.
Yes.
And you hit the nail on the head. Like, the sooner we are able to come in and set up a foundation and an infrastructure, the faster the company will avoid hiccups in the future and be able to scale, like, appropriately and in a compliant way. So ideally, I mean, once you hit maybe 5 employees, that's when, okay, we need to really start thinking through, what does your HR foundation look like? Or what does it need to look like? Because labor laws get unlocked when you reach 10 employees, and then there's 15 employees, and then there's 20, then there's 50, then there's 100. There's literally milestones from a federal law. And then also, depending on which state you reside in, some states unlock laws depending on your employee headcount. But
That's
we like
important.
to...
That's super important to know. Like, I want to kind of, like, 5 employees is like a bare threshold. Does that include contractors? Because there's so many, kind of these, like, balance between what is a contractor, what is not. Like, does that include contractors, or could it include contractors? So we should all be aware of that.
I would say it could and should include contractors as well.
Okay.
So we're looking at the whole picture. We're looking at your 1099s. We're looking at your W-2s. I mean, in today's age, I mean, the way people are building companies is truly hybrid. It's a mix of both, right? And there's also, like, distinctions between how both should be treated from an employee or a contractor standpoint. And so those boundaries should be established sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think that that's such an important, I think what you talked about, even from a compliance standpoint, knowing at these milestones, there are certain things from, what are some of those compliances? So, like, when I think compliance, like, my brain shuts down and I'm like, here's paperwork. So, like, what are those things that I have to be mindful of from a reporting standpoint, from a payroll standpoint? Like, what are those markers?
Yeah, I think ADA is a big one. So making sure, so ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act. So making sure that you're compliant with the ADA, and really a blanket protection. If you have more than 1 or 2 employees, you should have a employee handbook. Yeah. You should have a state compliant employee handbook. That is going to really cover you and help you sleep at night from all of the little things that are unlocked, like the ADA, the FMLA, things like that no one is, like, coming to our house and knocking on our doors, by the way, when these laws change are in effect. How are we supposed to know and keep up with it all?
Exactly. I mean, sometimes when we come in, like, later stage, when I say later stage, maybe at around 50 employees, and nothing is in place, and we find, gosh, these leaders haven't been in compliance. Right. They had no idea. They're running their business, and it's like there's not enough education. And I wish there was a system that triggers you, okay, as a reminder, you've reached 15 employees, you need to do this, and that, or 25 employees. There isn't such a system, right? So it's really up to the responsibility of leadership, of the owner, to, like, find out what these things are proactively. So we're really pleased to really help be that bridge and providing education to what really needs to happen, what you need to know to protect yourself in your business.
Right. So and I said, if you have more than a few employees, let's work together to get your employee handbook in place. That is probably the most important thing you can do for your business.
Yeah, I think that that's an important takeaway. I was just going to say is, regardless of, like, even whether it's an HR company or not that does it, like, even just having an employee, like, well, it should be, you should know your compliances, but in order for you to, like, not have to worry about those, you can hire a consultant to do that. But having an employee handbook is definitely one of, like, the, like, let's put that on, like, the checklist of, this podcast episode of, like, make sure that you have that. And then you also said that, knowing the labor laws within each of the different states is different. So understanding what your labor laws are for the states. Is there, like, what are, like, the easiest resources, right? Like, because not everyone can afford to hire a consultancy. So, like, what are some of, like, the best easy tools that we can put into place right now to go check to make sure that
Yeah.
here's at least some things that I'm checking off?
Great question. So the DOL, the Department of Labor, is a great resource, tons of links, and it goes state by state by state. You can double click on. And there's even a beautiful, like they call it the 1099 test. Like what's a 1099 versus a W-2?
Yeah.
And it's a quick reference, quick cheat sheet. Definitely the DOL. I think
I want to talk about that because I think that I bet you find a lot of that where employees should be employees or W-2 and they're 1099. And so I definitely want to like double click.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel like honestly, that's like one of the top things that we find.
It probably comes up at least once a week while we're onboarding.
Okay, tell us. This is what the podcast is for. So tell us, what do you find and what are the best? What are those? What is the difference? When should somebody be 1099? When shouldn't they? And what are you seeing? Give us the juice.
What we see a lot is organizations that have large pools of contractors and they're treating them like W-2s, like full-time employees. They're telling them what to wear, when to be somewhere, how to do the work, when to accomplish the work. And we can't treat contractors like that.
I'll just add, from our belief, it's not done in a malicious way.
No.
They really want them to be contractors to be part of their company culture, and they invite them to employee meetings. And yes, it's like so natural, right? Like, no, we don't want to treat you differently, right? And that's where that boundary. That's where we also expose ourselves. So it is a fine line to try to balance.
So how do you protect that? Because that's definitely something that I'm huge on is our culture, even whether it's within CO School, which is a really small team, whether it's, Worth and now there's 50 employees, like even if it is for example, our PR contractor, right? Like they're within our Slack, like they're not coming to our office. There's definitely they are a contractor, they provide services. However, there is this integration to make them successful. What are those boundaries and what should they be?
I think a simple one is if you're going to invite them to a company meeting, they're either presenting on a topic that's educational to everyone, or it's made voluntary, not mandatory.
Okay,
that's
voluntary, not
big
mandatory.
one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a really big one. Yes.
Okay. But what about if it's for their services, right? When I talk to, I have an ad agency contractor, they're providing, here's our updates.
That would be fine as a contractor. That's totally fine.
That's a business update. Yeah. That's totally fine.
But it's if I'm making them come to my all hands meeting mandatorily.
Then you're treating them like an employee. There's no distinction. Then you're truly treating them like an employee. That's right. Where's the distinction at?
Okay. And what about for non-full-time? Because a lot of the times I feel like contractors are let's say it's an administrative a lot of people have VAs. Let's talk about maybe that's an example. I feel like I'm trying to think of what our women have, right? So that's a contracted position or it's a part-time position. They're not full-time employees. They're a contracted VA. Do you find that that's a common one that people have contracted? What defines what should that relationship be like, or what are the rules around hours maybe? If you can just elaborate a bit further, because I feel like that's one that's I feel like all of our women have is an external, it might not even be full-time. It might just be a contracted VA.
I think when you're working with a contractor of any sort, but a VA is a good example, it all comes down to your contract and your scope of work with that person up front. Make sure you have a signed agreement and a signed scope of work. Make sure it entails the hours that they're expected to work, the work that they, the projects that they need to be completed. That's really going to protect you and really just set you both up for success as well.
I think that the part that is really great is the contractor has the contract, right? And so that is the missing piece of that, right? It's what is the contract and adhering to that contract. Okay, that makes sense. What are some of the other things that you see when you kind of come in and you're oh, they've been operating without this? So handbook, making sure, who's W-2 and who's contract. What else do you guys see?
We see a lot, we audit how they onboard a new employee and or how they offboard. So we're really looking at the entire employee life cycle from when they come in and from when they transition out. So what we find a lot of the times is that a lot of our business owners are unintentionally setting their new hires, they're not setting them up for success. So they don't have 30, 60, or 90-day onboarding plans. A lot of the times, they will, like, some new hires will actually contact us, like, where am I supposed to go? And they don't have a laptop ready. It's literally hot mess express. And again, everyone is busy. Everyone is like, it's not done intentionally, but we find that onboarding, like not having like a proper onboarding, like checklist, or there's very little like automation with that, which we're obsessed with, like streamlining and automation using systems and tools, which we can talk a little bit more about, which can really take a lot of the burden off of everyone if a lot of this is automated. But we do find that the onboarding process is a hot mess express train. So we do a lot of the cleanup in helping streamline that process.
If you have paper employee files, I love you, but please call us. But please call us.
Yes.
We will help you.
Okay, so getting it off of paper, automation. Can you talk a little bit about some of those tools that you were sharing? So like, what are like the best tools right now that you're seeing? And I know one of the topics that I really want to jump into is AI with HR, but I'm not going to go there yet because we're going to go down like a huge rabbit hole. So before we go into like that, what are some of the tools that, you know, or like the top tools that you guys recommend as experts? Like, what are the tools?
I think there's a couple tiers. I mean, I think Gusto is one of our favorite HR tools. Kind of more of like the mid-level Bamboo HR is going to be a favorite of ours. And then from a top tier, I mean, UKG, Workday.
But that's when I wouldn't recommend those for like a small business. But starting off, like small business package, like Augusto, what that does is it really streamlines like your payroll and your employee onboarding. It houses your employee handbook all in one system.
Right.
It really, like, the paperwork goes away completely. Everything is automated. Click of a button, everything is sent to the new hire. They complete all of that before they even step into the door. Right. So we love Gusto and we love Bamboo HR. There's tons of systems out there, but these are the two that we are big fans of because they're super user friendly. You don't need to be an HR expert, and it's like an all-in-one system where it houses your HR stuff and your payroll stuff.
Yeah, and Gusto, I mean, it can also do your performance management as well. So your performance reviews. And Gusto is a system that, now, no system is perfect, but it does really help you keep up from a compliance perspective as well.
That's gold.
It'll chase you down.
That's gold. Stuff. That's such an important tool that you just shared right there. And then Bamboo HR is another one. So we'll try to link those into the show notes as well. But I think that's really cool because now there are HR platforms that can do a lot more. And from a performance management system, are you talking about for reviews? Can we talk about a little bit of like, how do you manage employees, right? So now that you've got them, maybe talk about the onboarding a bit because 30, 60, 90 days are important, but walk me through a little bit of that life cycle of the things that we should be mindful of as a business owner.
I think a lot of it is be mindful of your employees' experience. I mean, I really challenge everyone to think of a great onboarding experience they've had with an organization and then a really poor one. I think we've all had the experience where we get a box with a laptop in the mail and we don't know what else to do from there. So I think really set your new hire up for success. They should know exactly what to do day one. Their really first 2 weeks should be spelled out for them. And then from there, we need to create a really thoughtful success plan that is 30, 60, and 90 days in length. And we're checking in at the end of each of those plans.
Right. I also think it's very critical in the beginning, the first 2 weeks, that the employee really, or the new hire really understand what is the overall like objective of the company and how does their role play in achieving it or helping achieve that overall like strategy and objective. Like people want to be tied to a bigger purpose. They want to feel like they're connected to, something more than themselves. Like what's my role in this? And like making those connections actions, whether it's like making sure you've set up like clear OKRs for the individual. That's like a goal setting methodology that we love to use. But the biggest thing is ensuring that they understand how their role is impacting the success of the company. And more importantly, they need to know where the company is trying to go, right? So I think a lot of the times, I think leaders underestimate how important it is to bring people like with us and share what are we trying to achieve and by when. Like, I don't think we talk enough about our strategies, especially in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. I think that another thing that's missed is like, who is who? I know it's like so under, like it's not like, duh, it sounds so obvious, but like, what is your org chart? Like, what does that look like? Like, who is who? What are they over, right? Or setting them up with some kind of buddy system where they have like a cross-functional like peer that helps, like show them the ropes for a couple of weeks, but can form a camaraderie. These things are so important, and I think a lot of the times underestimated because they're super impactful, but I just don't think we do enough of that.
I fully agree with that statement there. I think it's so important. And even the things that sometimes you're like, oh, well, of course you should know, or of course you should know our mission, of course you should know what our value, of course all of this stuff. It's not. I mean, it's so important to remind everyone that we're like all rowing in the same direction and to give your team time. Like, honestly, like most of our headaches are also people, right? Because we're always like, oh, this isn't done, or why can't this be better? Why can't this be faster? But if you actually assess the amount of time that we spend with our people, right? Like just a basic one-on-one, I find leaders skip them all the time. So it's like, how do you expect results to happen when you're not actually nurturing that relationship? And your team, these are real humans that need real relationships. They need to be told they're doing a good job. And they need opportunity for feedback. They need opportunity to connect. And I do think what you talked about, even cross-functionally across teams, like so key, so important. And we don't spend enough time. Yeah, we expect a result as leaders. But if we actually do the reflection, like, we haven't contributed to their success. So why should it work out perfectly? And we just assume for it to work out. And this is where I find, where leaders are so unhappy with their teams. Or I find this so often, even within the leadership groups, that conversations that we have with Millionaire Founders Club and just with our leaders, that it's like, man, it's so hard to find employees. It's so hard to, the work ethic, or to get stuff done, or just feeling like the A team isn't the A team. But what are we doing to actually create that A team? And the ownership also on us as leaders and as a company. And the amount of time, like, your job as a CEO is to spend time, like, your job is to be the executive officer of the company, to guide your people to do the thing. It's not actually your job to do the stuff. You belong to the people. Sal would always tell me that. So my brother, I'll share a story with you of like where I get so bogged down sometimes and I think it's for us women sometimes too. Like, we're so like, we need to like do the thing. We need, like, it's so hard for us to like not give up our Legos. Like, like it's so hard for us to delegate.
You're my Legos.
All the things. And he's like, your time needs to be with the people. And, and it really is like, I really do, like, his leadership has been something that I definitely like look up to. And he had a lot more like corporate training than I did. But I do think some of those corporate structures are just formal one-on-ones, making sure that you have time to check in, doing performance reviews, having a 30, 60, 90-day plan, actually creating, having like sharing the org chart, like transparently, sharing your RACI, which is like your, organizational, how everyone's roles work with each other, and like doing a RACI. I don't even know what a RACI was. And I can't even tell, what is it? Responsible, accountable, consultant and inform, and like every team needs to have one. And so like these little practices, they take time and you want to avoid them, but if you put in the work, then you have employees that are successful, you have less turnover, you have like all of your goals accomplished. Like, that's where success really happens.
1,000%.
I know I just like spewed off, like, I feel like what I hate is like, I don't want anyone like, you just spewed off like a bunch of acronyms and it feels so overwhelming. What are some of the things that you recommend that we can, like, what are those things that we can recommend? So we said 30, 60, 90-day plan. Like, how do we make it more tactical so that she can get there as a leader?
So I think the first 30 days, It sounds so simple, but set up one-on-ones for your new employee with their peers. Set
I
up
would even say,
one-on-ones.
even if, like, for example, if you have employees, you're not doing this, start. So you don't have to have a new employee to do it.
Right. Yeah, you can do this tomorrow. Yeah, you
Yes.
can literally do this tomorrow with your employees. Set up one-on-ones for them. Set up meetings with their peers, cross-functional meetings with you as the leader, with your peers. Set up those one-on-ones.
And just to talk a little bit more about the one-on-ones, let's double click on that a little bit. I think one of the things that and this was a big miss for me as well, early on in my career, I would never start with the basic, like, how are you doing as a person?
Right.
Like, how are you doing? Like, these one-on-ones is like, it's almost like a wellness check-in as well as a professional check-in, but let's start there. Like, how are you doing? And really showing that employee that you care. And then your one-on-ones can be very, very simple. Like, I've seen one-on-ones that are very effective, like using the start, stop, continue, like, what should we start? What should we stop? What should we continue? But I think the biggest thing on a one-on-one, it should be bi-directional, right? This isn't just like for the employee, this is also for you. And there needs to be this bi-directional feedback loop. This isn't just, I'm going to dump all of everything that I have going on, right? Like, it has to be like this reciprocal opportunity for feedback for both parties.
I love this. I think that this is just a reminder, I would say, right? Like, for everyone that's listening, for your team, implement the check-in time, implement and really assess, what can you be doing better to help support their development, even if you don't have their 30, 60, 90-day plan, even just starting with that check-in to say, hey, what does their development path look like? There's so many ways that we can pick it up and go to make them successful. But now I want to take a turn, and I'm dying to ask you some HR stuff. So what happens if it doesn't work out? How do you effectively fire?
Ooh. My first question is, will the employee be shocked? Will this person be shocked?
Okay.
I interact with our clients on a daily and a weekly basis, and I have folks, hey, I need to write this person up. This person isn't doing XYZ correctly. Have you spoken to the employee about this? Does the employee know that this is an issue? That's always where I started.
I would say secondarily, have your conversations or your coaching been documented in a way that it's clear that we know that there is a trajectory where you've done active coaching? What does that process look like? A lot of the times clients will come to us, I'm done with this person. Yep. I'm ready to fire them. And we're slow the train down. Yeah. What? Give us context. What is the data? We always what is your policy? What is your employee handbook? Going back to that, what does that say? What policy did they violate? We always want to connect, what did they violate and why? If it's a straight performance issue, we really want to understand what coaching has been done to get to this point. And to Kacie's point, it is a big red flag if the leader's they'll be completely taken, they'll be stunned. They don't know this is coming. That's a failure on the leader. Yeah. That's a failure on the leader. So so once we do all of that and then ensure that there's documentation, that there's been coaching, that no, it will not be a surprise, then the actual conversation is very short. Yeah. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. This isn't a negotiation, even if the employee, tries to, why? And, this is, at this point, you've made the decision, you have your ducks in a row from an HR and documentation standpoint. I would say the conversation, it's short, it's empathetic. You're dealing with a human being. And by the way, if firing a person ever gets easy, you have bigger issues, because it never gets easy. I hate to say, we've probably terminated in our careers I don't even know how many, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Yeah, that's what you do,
people.
man. That's
literally that's what it's never ever gets easy, ever. And if it does, then that's a separate conversation. But generally speaking, it's hey. I'm making a name up. Let's
fire me.
Hey, Amanda. Yeah. Hey, Suneera. We've had multiple conversations around your performance. We met on so and so date, and then we've seen very little progress. and because of these reasons, we've made the difficult decision to terminate your employment effective immediately. This is what this is going to look like. Ideally, we would want a witness in that conversation. If you don't have an HR person, that's okay. Maybe it's another senior leader in your organization. But again, you want to try to make the conversation as succinct and as short and as empathetic as possible. And it's, we get a lot of the times, like Kacie, you were even saying, she terminated someone yesterday and the person was in tears. And again, it's never easy, right? And we should empathize. Like it's really sad. But at the end of the day, you also know that it's releasing them is the best thing for not just your company, but for them themselves. So, and what gets us to that place is also knowing that we've done our part in coaching.
And something that's really important about terminating employees is there is pre-work that needs to be done. You need to be aware of the termination and payout policies in the state that you're operating business in and the state that employee lives in. Some states say, hey, you can pay out this employee per your payroll cycle whenever you normally would. There are a handful of states where you actually do have to pay that employee what is owed to them the day that you release them.
Yeah.
So there is some pre-compliance work and some checklists that need to be done before you're terminating this person. Get your ducks in a row.
I think you guys did a really great job of really summarizing that, because that's exactly the way that I've learned over the last 15 years of being a CEO, and it wasn't like that in the beginning. And I can go back to what you said about it never gets easier. It never gets easier. It never ever gets easier. And there's so many times I want to opt out of being there. But if they're reporting into you, like you have to, like that is, it comes from the leader, and then the witness is important as well. And I'm one that is like, I'm verbose. Like that's why I have a podcast. Like I want to like give the reasons and I want to empathize, and that's not the way that it's done. And that's something that I've had to just come to terms with, because I'm like, that's so stoic. It's so like even, and to find the way like you did it, and you just fired me and my heart is broken, but it was very empathetic. It was empathetic, right? And you did also help me understand that based on these facts, this conversation and this conversation and this conversation. So for those that are listening, documentation is really important, not just from a legal standpoint. That's like, let's put compliance off, right? I got 2 HR directors here. They're going to talk to me about compliance. But what I want to share with you, just from a documentation standpoint, they're not surprised, right? You've put in the work. You've given them opportunities. And I have seen so many times where sometimes it's not even just awareness, and we were willing to fire somebody, but they don't have the tools. They don't have we haven't given them, like, there's a disconnect. And as soon as you actually have that difficult conversation and they're willing to meet you at the table, I've seen so many times where an employee has worked out by having a difficult conversation. So that also, being like, hey, these are the performance issues that I'm having, and we're going to work on this. And we call it like a performance improvement plan, right? Like a PIP, and like, we're going to work on this over the next 30 days. And you don't even have to do a formal, I've also had it where if you put people on a formal PIP, that they're already starting to look for the next job. But just even having documentation around like these conversations and coaching them, I have seen some of those team members actually take accountability and say, no, you're right. I do want to do better. I wasn't aware of this, or this is my path to making this better. And when you're actually at that, kind of like that third and final, where you're like, hey, we've had this conversation, and you also feel validated in the fact that you're not making the wrong decision because you have gone through the thing. They also don't feel surprised because it's like, nope, you did give me a fair shot at an opportunity, so I can't really, rebut that, or and so that is really important of how you shared that. And then the pre-work, I think, other things that I feel like I've been burnt in the past, and I know we're going to talk about some of those at the end, but, sometimes employees do really bad things when they're angry and they leave, right? Even if you've done the right things, even if you've done this stuff. And so some, best practices that we learned over the years was to make sure that, you have the tools like are locked, right? For like, if they have access to your email list, or if they have access to certain, really important systems and policies in the org, or your processes, or your client list, or things like that, to make sure that like when we unfortunately have to terminate an employee, which is our last resort, but when it does happen, right, that today is their last day, and it's a clean break, and we've already been prepped for the last couple of weeks. So we've already removed, like, today will be like, as soon as the cutoff happens, my IT team, like, the cutoff is out, so they're not going in and like taking our client list or doing anything that they shouldn't. And so there are some really great, just lessons that, not great lessons, but hard lessons that I've learned, that I wish, like, if I had like experts in the beginning to tell me that, but this is where the shocking part of HR sometimes comes in too.
That's right.
No, but I think you guys did a really good job. So thank you for sharing that. And it is important, right? Turnover will happen in your company, and doing it right. I also will say, I've always led with heart, and I could say that even through every circumstance, like, I can always go to bed at night knowing I've done the right thing. Like, to me, that is like such an important, like, peace trigger that I have. And even as a leader, I've made mistakes that, it's not always perfect in leadership. And it is important when you sit with those one-on-ones that you're also vulnerable in terms of of your leadership and getting feedback back, because you're also growing as a leader too. And my style may not perfectly resonate. I know what my flaws are. I also transparently share, like, here are my triggers, or here's things that, like, whenever I onboard an employee, I'm like, look, I do not write with emojis. Like, I just don't. And so, like, don't take my tone, or if I'm like fast, like, I have learned to pick up the phone, because I swear, Kacie and Nadian, like, if I shoot off a message, and I'm sure many women can relate to this, actually. If I shoot off a message, immediately, whether it's an email or a thing, I feel like my tone is completely misinterpreted. And I feel like I use ChatGPT all the time to, like, check my tone. And if I don't put in the exclamation, or I don't put in the emoji, and I just don't talk like that. And so it's so hard for me to do that. And I'm like quick and I'm fast and I'm just in my CEO mode. But to an employee or to, like, a counterparty, sometimes it's like they're going through their stories in their head. I've learned that about myself, and I don't think that it's fully fair. So I will say that. And I think that I don't think that it's fair. And I do think that women get the brunt of that, because my male co-founders can say the same exact message and it won't be interpreted.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So, however, I do acknowledge that I want happy team members, and I don't want my tone to be misinterpreted. And the way that I go about it, I'm like, I'm just going to call you, and I just voice, because then you can hear my inflections in my voice, or, whatever we're approving. And so I really do try to use voice over message. And I've just learned that as a leader, but I'll share that with my team, or I have a new team member or an intern or anything else. I'm like, I'm going to be direct. This is how I do it. Don't misinterpret it. Just pick up the phone and call me. Or if you have any story in your head, that weekly one-on-one that we have, then it's like, my team knows to be like, hey, were you pissed about this? Or did I do, like, no, this is, like, my feedback here. Or, like, we can have those conversations. And if I've done something, I'm like, oh shit, I can see how you, like, misinterpreted that. Like, I will do a better job here of, like, getting that approval to you faster. And so I do think that that relationship of what you're talking about, this is, like, getting your team to be successful. It's also, like, not only so beneficial for the company, you're not going to go far without it, but it is rewarding as a leader. Like, there is no greater reward than I get than seeing my people shine.
Yeah.
1,000. And it's our responsibility. Like, we're putting these seats to develop and groom and grow others. And frankly, if we're not grooming others and others aren't growing, like, the company won't grow, right? It's just a responsibility. And to your point, it's one of the most fulfilling things that we can do as leaders and CEOs.
Well, we're going to continue. Like, I feel like we're always going to go over time talking about these fun things. I do a quick segue into AI, and we've got so many great tools in AI right now. And at the Millionaire Founders Club conference, you showed me an AI agent that can be your recruiter. And so I would love for you to talk about some of the AI trends that you're seeing in recruiting and onboarding and all this stuff, because I think that this is changing the game for at least taking out so much of that searchability, the administration around it. So share some of those things that you shared with us.
Yeah, so I'll talk about Ellie, and then I'll let you talk about some of the HR trends that you're seeing. So Ellie is a tool that our recruiting team uses. I literally call her a recruiting queen. So she will so you upload your job description, and she will create a interview guide for you in seconds. She'll create a candidate profile for you in seconds. you invite her to your interviews, and she will put together the most beautiful candidate presentations from the interview. So she puts candidate summaries together, candidate strengths, and she'll ultimately make a recommendation for you based off the job description. And then you can go as far to actually chat with Ellie, just like you would ChatGPT, and ask her questions about the interview that you had with your candidates.
I love this. Okay, so Ellie, and we'll link Ellie so you guys can all check out Ellie. But I saw like a version of Ellie, and like legit, it was like the movie, and she's like finding employees and creating your stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and why not? Why not?
And why? I mean, hands down, I think if you were to just from a time perspective, how much time do you think this has saved us and our clients?
Oh gosh, hours
Hours
of weeks. I mean,
just the gift of giving your time back.
Yeah, but I really liked the searchability. So like you can be like, hey, what's our policy for whatever? Or like you can ask Ellie, and then the handbook, right? Like the handbook, it's such like, cause it's a digestible piece. Like who's going to actually search through the handbook, but your employees have policies and everything. And they'll be like, hey, what's our PTO policy? What's our blah, 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 blah. And they can use this tool. Okay. Super great. So lots of great HR AI tools. I really loved all the tools that you shared as well. Anything else that we didn't cover before we go?
So one more from a tool standpoint that I'm obsessed with. It's a tool called Culture Amp. This is more around employee engagement and culture. So this tool will literally predict like to the day, depending on like your employees, like employee satisfaction and employee engagement and how they really complete the survey, like to the day, and like the turnover costs of when they will leave. It is so accurate that, in fact, I mean, one thing that a leadership team and a CEO will not argue are numbers. So when you present, like I always say, like HR leaders, like lead with your numbers. Like, I mean, yes, we lead with our hearts. That's like who we are. But like, if you want to be taken like seriously, like here, like no one's going to argue. Like data. what is the data? What is the cost of turnover? When are these people going to leave? And by the way, just the predictability and how accurate it is, it's quite scary.
Yeah. Wow.
And you can really like double click on, okay, what are the departments? Like, you know, it prints out this beautiful heat map on like, here are your opportunity departments. This is under
oh my
this
God,
leader.
I need to get this. I'm writing these notes down.
You will be obsessed. Like, so highly recommend Culture Amp. Literally our favorite employee engagement and predictability tool.
it was really Culture Amp was like on the forefront of AI, honestly.
Okay, I love this. Okay, we're definitely going to get this. Now, the one of the other, sorry, I'm having a brain moment. Lily, you might have to pause. I had one final question before I went into stories. Culture. Oh yeah. Okay. I'll start for 1 second. That's awesome. I can't wait to get this tool and like really this, what am I saying? And like, okay. Thank you for that. I mean, these tools are going to be incredible. I'm like taking my notes right now and I cannot wait to get into them. My final question for you guys, since you brought up culture, is really on culture. How are you, like, what are the best things that you're seeing for all the companies that you guys serve? What are they doing for culture now? Because I feel like culture has shifted so much since COVID environment, now post-COVID, there's a huge return to office in many of the different segments. Hybrid work is back. So I am seeing the shift of in-person work again. How are companies managing, like what are the best cultures that you're seeing and how are they able to cultivate culture when it's hybrid or remote? Because that's something that I feel like I'm not struggling with, but I'm paying really close attention to. It was a lot natural for me at Stocks because we were all in person. Then post-COVID, although it wasn't in person and it was hybrid, we still had that in-person energy and we had culture that was already established to then just continue on with. With Worth, it's a brand new company. And so the culture is being formed in its first like formative years. And it's a hybrid company. We've got employees all over the US. We have a huge presence in Orlando, but it's hybrid. What are some of the tips and things that you have for the new style of work that you're seeing and culture and how to really cultivate the best culture for your company? Because we all know culture eats strategy for breakfast, right?
Amen. Amen. I mean, I'll start and you can. So I think the biggest thing is ensuring that you are having at least a weekly huddle with your company.
Yeah.
Like, you can call it something fun, whether it's the all hands name is not fun, but just call it something that's unique to your culture. And but I would say having weekly meetings with your people to give them business updates, and this is important, to shout them out. Mm-hmm. And the shout out is tied to your company values. So this is where, maybe it's like a little nomination form, like a peer-to-peer shout out. I want to shout out Kacie for really showing up and really displaying the teamwork, the value around teamwork. This is how she did it. And it's like tangible. And people just get so hype, so excited. Like, yeah, Kacie, like you did do that and you're awesome. And having those be part of integrated these recognition moments that are tied to your company values on a weekly basis. I mean, ideally weekly basis is huge. It's a great way to form camaraderie and keep your values at the forefront. I think that's a very simple way to keep culture going.
Yeah, I think the peer-to-peer aspect is really important in that too. A lot of companies will do it from the top down. No, get your people talking about one another. That's going to forge really strong relationships.
Yep. I think another way to team build, we always love doing self-development work. So whether it's some kind of personality test, I mean, we love strength finders, we love DISC assessments, we love, there's a ton of them that we recommend. But doing that kind of let's get to know each other and our strengths and how our superpowers, our unique superpowers, and people, I mean, love to talk about themselves, in the best way, right? Just really shining a light on that. And then it allows the leaders to really look at what's possible, right? Using all of these unique strengths. But we love doing those kind of team building events that really offer a lot more introspection. And then you get the team together and really digest those results. Love that for team building. It's honestly one of the fastest ways that a team can really gel together the fastest.
I love that.
You've got to get in person too. I mean, if you're hybrid, if you're remote, you've got to get people together once a quarter for a few days.
I was going to ask how often you recommend, because right now I feel like there's different areas of the business that will bring in once a quarter. QBRs are a great way to do that with leaders, but when the company's getting so large, it's hard to be flying everyone in, but it's so important. I love this reminder of you just got to get in person and celebrate and have fun.
And do something fun. We're doing something like a murder mystery dinner or an escape room, or do something fun that will get people laughing. And, or it can be dinner. I mean, it doesn't have to be this extravagant.
You could volunteer.
That's what we're doing with our company. We're doing a team building event where we're all getting together and volunteering and giving back to the community. It doesn't have to be, but the point is getting together and getting that in-person connection is the most important.
Oh my goodness. This is so good. I feel like these are all the things. I feel like I am validated for all the things that I feel like we're doing right, and so many areas that we could be improving as well. I know, for every woman that's listening, this is important stuff. I'm really, really glad we're able to have this conversation, because when you have happy people, you do have a successful outcome for your company. It really, really is. And it doesn't matter whether it's, one employee or it's 50 employees or 100 employees. It does start with you. And the time that you invest is what you're going to get back. And so I'm super, super grateful for that. I did promise at the end that we'd share an HR nightmare story. And I know we're not going to share names, but could you share one that you can maybe share?
Oh gosh.
Are we allowed to? I don't even know, because I've got such juicy ones, but I can't really share because y'all know my companies. I can't actually share, but I will say that I've literally caught people. I would say that boys and girls together are naughty. Let's just say that. And it doesn't matter whether they're married or not, and it's not my business, but we will find that very common in organizations, and you're like, what? And and that will happen. So those are just
definitely happen.
People doing way worse. I don't even know what's worse than that, but there's a lot. People would lie. I've caught people having multiple jobs. That's happened to me before too, where it's
we've seen that a
completely
couple times.
other full-time gig, and you're just that was like, now because of the remote environment, like, oh my God, I can go on and on, but you tell me some.
Okay.
This one's pretty recent, actually. I'm not even, no details. No one will qualify this, but I had a husband and wife working together at the same company, and the husband refers his girlfriend to also work at the company and like doesn't think this is going to end badly. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
It ended like super badly.
Oh my goodness. I kid you not. And then had like, oh my God, there's so many things. Nadian, give me one.
So I would say, okay, I don't know how juicy this one is, but this is the one that, like, there's just so many. We caught an employee stealing something on camera. And when we confronted him about it, like, hey, this is what we caught you doing. And he literally went ballistic and said, I didn't do it, and are you trying to call me a liar? And like literally I literally thought he was going to hit me. It was not a good situation. It's like, we have that on camera. So just like, I don't know how juicy that one was, but I will never forget that.
This is the stuff that it is absolutely. It's hard. And I will say that my best moments are with my people and my worst moments are also with my people too. And
it's humanity. That's exactly right.
I feel like I used to cry and like, I feel like, oh my God, so many people are so mean to like within like, I don't know, there's a lot and it is rewarding at the same time. But you do have to have, this is where your value systems are so important to avoid situations like this. You can always fall back on how you're hiring is so important. And you can't, even with every perfect system check, you will still sometimes let in people that might not be that fit. And that's why it's important to have those check-ins, to be paying attention, not to be an absent leader, because it doesn't fall very quickly. Like when stuff like this happens, people think that they're going to get it. Like whatever the situation that I've been in all of these different HR situations, I feel like it's caught like fairly quickly because everyone's paying attention. And by doing it right and, again, documenting it, not just doing it on a whim, even if you find something that you're not in agreement, it might not be illegal, right? Just because there might be that there's nothing illegal about him bringing his girlfriend or his affair or whatever. And so you do have to ensure that the compliance piece is there so that you can remove those people that are not of the value system as well. Right. And so that is, this podcast needs to happen where we put on like the ski masks and share.
Yes.
Y'all want this? Definitely DM it, screenshot it. I will definitely do some episodes like that. I really want to.
Me too. We can do that all day,
right? I mean, those are juicy. That's like the business shit we need to hear that we can't talk about.
And no one talks about it. No one talks about this
because
stuff.
I feel like I'm not compliantly allowed to talk about it. But if I have 2 HR compliance officers here with me, maybe I can get away with it. I don't know.
You can.
You can. Or daddy, it's called HR, Call me daddy or whatever the show is. But oh my goodness, this was so fun. This is so fun. You guys are the best. Everyone needs your services. So please tell everyone where we can find you.
Yeah, so you can either follow us on Instagram, so that's ZAK Human Solutions, or go right on our website, ZAKHumanSolutions.com, and fill out an intake form.
Perfect. I cannot wait. I will link everything. You guys are the best. Thanks for sharing juicy HR stuff with us. Founders, CEOs, build your A team. This is so, so important. And I hope you learned something and had some fun takeaways from today's supposedly boring HR episode, but I think we kept it really, really fun and awesome. I think HR can be sexy, right, Kacie and Nadian?
That's right. We're
trying to make it sexy.
Yeah, I don't even think we can say sexy. HR can be great. I don't know.
There you go.
HR can say sexy.
We can say sexy. See what HR does to me. All right, bye, ladies. Thanks for the great workshop that you guys did at MFC. It was superb. I can't wait to see you guys in the fall. And for those of you, we're rounding up our season here for CEO School. I hope you guys have been enjoying the conversations. I'm so sad that the season is almost over, but do not worry. We are going to be doing summer school here. Every year we take a break during summer. And we play the best of episodes. So the ones that you maybe have missed and, the ones that everyone's downloaded. And so we're going to make sure that you're fully caught up before the new season begins. And I'm super, super excited for the fall season that's going to take place. But I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode today. And if you did, screenshot it, share it with your friends, tag our friends, tag us at CO School, and leave us a review. That's how we grow the show. Until next week, I'll see you at CO School. Bye, everyone.
Bye.